Well, a new fight in the media over what is and is not appropriate coverage of the first family. It started when Joan Walsh, the left-leaning editor-at-large of Salon.com, attacked a conservative blogger for revealing where Sasha and Malia Obama were recently vacationing. That piece, which was on Breitbart.com by the conservative blogger, raised questions about the expense of the trip in light of the budget changes we've seen in Washington and the whole sequester dust-up. Ms. Walsh over on Salon suggested this post was racist and demanded that people treat the president's daughters with respect. But this same writer, Joan Walsh, wrote a scathing article about the Bush family's, quote, alcohol troubles back in 2001, reporting on teenage twins Barbara and Jenna Bush, even appearing to suggest that the girls could be on the road to becoming alcoholics themselves. Monica Crowley is a radio talk show host. Kirsten Powers is a Daily Beast columnist. Both are Fox News contributors. And I have the piece that Joan Walsh posted in 2001 in front of me. It is entitled "The First Family's Alcohol Troubles." Now, at the time, the Bush daughters, their twins, were 19 years old. They were in college. And there had been some reports in the National Enquirer originally that she cites heavily in the piece, very dependent on the Enquirer, about some drinking incidents that they had. And she goes on, this is the original piece by her, talking about Bush's bad choices as a father, saying, look, there's no evidence either twin has a drinking problem, but the string of news items involving their partying and scrapes with the law in the last few months cannot be ignored. The recklessness in the first few months of their father's presidency suggests their parents screwed up by downplaying and even denying President Bush's own drinking problem, and goes on to describe them as a waspy Texas Bush family, saying the first twins are acting out as a result, and talking about how he may someday find he won the White House at the cost of an honest relationship with his daughters. So I ask you, Kirsten, who is Joan Walsh to lecture anyone on respect for the first family?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty outrageous. She did write a follow-up post saying that she wouldn't write that article again, though she didn't really clarify why or what's changed in the last 12 years or so, because it's not like Joan was 22 when she wrote that. She was an adult. She was a journalist. So, I think that it was, pretty bad and very cruel to the Bush daughters, and they were in college. You remember when Chelsea Clinton went to college? I remember it. The reporters were very hands-off about that. They, really did not. You never heard anything about Chelsea for the most part, and that was sort of understood. And I think in the same way with the Obama daughters, I don't think you should report where they're vacationing. I think they are off limits.
Agreed.
But
I think we all agree on that point.
Yeah, for Joan Walsh to call it racist, I think I just think it's a bad taste and it's bad journalism. I wouldn't call it racist.
Right, and that was the other point she was making, Monica, apart from the hypocrisy of what she has done, and when she got caught, because she didn't disclose in her piece bashing Breitbart that she herself had done this to first daughters 10 years ago, but she was caught, and Mediaite and then Breitbart posted her 2001 hit on the Bush daughters. Then she came out and said, oh, well, my hypocrisy. I wouldn't have used that same tone, I guess. And I guess I regret that article. But that was a legitimate news story. But where the Obama daughters are vacationing is not. Now, we all agree we don't talk about where the first daughters are vacationing. That wasn't right. It's for their safety. We protect our first family. But the charge that it is racist to discuss the first family's vacations, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's really despicable, Megyn, that she brings out this line about racism. She brought it up in the first piece, and in the follow-up piece that Kirsten just cited, she raised it again, that if somehow you criticize this president on anything, whether it's on the deficit, whether it's on out-of-control government spending, whether it's on Obamacare, whether it's on the fact that this is their third vacation and we're only in the third month of the year, at a time of sequester and belt-tightening for every American, and especially for the government, or should be anyway, if you raise legitimate criticisms about the way this man is governing the country, that somehow you're racist. It is, first of all, it's despicable and it's outrageous and should not be tolerated. Secondly, it has no place in this conversation. I mean, remember, Martin Luther King Jr. said, let the time come when we don't judge by the color of skin, but by the content of character. Now we have the first black president. We should be extending that to, well, let's judge by the content of his policies and the way he's governing.
Kirsten, what she is saying, Kirsten, is that the reason. This is what she writes in her piece. The theme of most right-wing stories on Sasha, Malia, and Michelle Obama's vacations and leisure time activities seems to be that they're entitled princesses when they do exactly the same kinds of things other presidents' families have done throughout history. And she talks about how she believes that that people think that they are, quote, uppity, and that there's a racist theme to talking about their expensive vacations in Aspen. That's where Michelle Obama went, and elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, you know, look, this vacation thing goes on in every administration. I'm sure you all remember we always were hearing about George Bush's mountain biking and George Bush going to the ranch and how many times he'd gone to the ranch. And Maureen Dowd loved to write about it. You know, so it's so pervasive. You know, when John Kerry was running for president, you know, he goes windsurfing or he goes skiing or whatever. Each side does this. It's not race. There's nothing racist about it. They're just doing what they always do. It doesn't matter, you know. And for Joan to pretend like she doesn't know that, you know, that she did it herself. You know, this is just. I don't do it personally. I think they should be allowed to take vacations. Mm-hmm. But you know, and I'm sorry, Secret Service has to go along and it has to be paid for. It doesn't mean, you know, they should be overdoing it. But I don't begrudge them going on vacation. And certainly the daughters are off limits. Mm-hmm. But I read the Breitbart story, and it was the most straightforward story. I wouldn't have written it because he discused where they were, but he
didn't need to do that. He could have said they're at some ritzy place, period. Right. That's all. It didn't even have to get into it. You know, there's been a theme of, a string of vacations that the Obamas have taken that have been pricey to fancy places, in part because Barack Obama's from Hawaii. And so they go to Hawaii a lot. Michelle Obama likes to ski, so they go to ski places, which tends to be expensive. And then we're not going to get into where the first daughters are now. But the point is, he was trying to make a point. He didn't have to get into the specifics. But I do want to ask you this, Monica, because, you know, again, certain people on the left like to go back to the racism place repeatedly. I mean, everything is racist. Was Joan Walsh called, you know, a racist when she went after the Bush daughters? No, because she's white and they were white. But if Bush had been black and she wrote that same exact piece about the Bush daughters and their drinking, some of her colleagues on the left would have said she's a racist. It's like you're not immune from criticism just because you're the first black family, and it shouldn't be either a shield or a sword used against you.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, Megan. And unfortunately, what's so tragic about this is that so many folks on the left have made the racism card the go-to card to attack anybody who is opposing President Obama on any number of issues. And that is what's really, it's despicable and it's tragic because, yes, there is real racism that exists. And every time the race card is pulled and played in a place where it doesn't belong, every time racism is injected where it doesn't exist and where it hasn't existed and where it's inappropriate and has no place, then it actually dilutes real racism and makes it harder for people to take a look at real racism. So for the left to do this on a routine basis still after all of this time, it defeats their own purpose, Megan, and it makes people tune out what they're saying.
And she didn't have to go there. If she just said he shouldn't have done this, it's not what media people do, we tend to protect our first family, she would have been on solid footing. But she went to a dark place and she got caught. She got caught being hypocritical. Panel, thank you both so much.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thanks, Meg.